Now, this is once again going to be one of those videos where I'm very curious to hear what you all have to say on a topic, and I might just make one of my follow-up type videos where I pretty much just exclusively read your comments in response to a question I'll pose at the end of the video here. And if you're one of those people who maybe only comes to my channel to discuss the actual ins and outs of Star Wars and or Marvel, and you don't care about all the external stuff you could say, I'll certainly understand if you stop this video and move on with your day, though I'd still love to hear your thoughts on this topic. Anyway, there's a lot of news going around, or perhaps I should say interview clips and other details that people are commenting and making videos about that seem to suggest or show a good deal of animosity existing between Brie Larson, who plays Captain Marvel, and the rest of the cast of Avengers Endgame. And to be completely honest and open with you up front, I've been so excited for this movie that I've kind of tried to ignore all of that because I don't want anything to possibly dampen my enjoyment of the actual movie. I don't want anything to ruin what will perhaps be one of the greatest movie experiences of my life. That being said though, I've had a lot of people asking me what I think about all this, if I plan on making a video, or what have you. Because yes, I have commented before on Brie Larson and the things she's said, as well as made it clear that I truly hope Captain Marvel doesn't have too big of a part to play in Endgame. But that's only because I'd rather see the Avengers we've been following for, in some cases, more than 10 years now, go out with a bang and to be the heroes here, rather than a character who just had their first movie come out 2 months ago, and will no doubt be in many, many more movies in the years to come, and will have plenty of chances for moments of greatness down the road. Anyway, that's really not the issue here, and it's mostly about how Brie Larson is apparently feuding with her fellow castmates and how some of them don't seem to like her, even though during press tours on previous Avengers movies before Brie Larson, we've seen a great deal of camaraderie out of the Avengers cast, to the point where they truly do feel like a team both on and off the screen. Which is not only awesome to see as a fan, but it's part of the appeal as well. It's always great to see that the actors seem to enjoy what they're doing, that they have fun with it and with the fandom that follows the movies. And as I've said many times before, a passion for a project will almost always shine through in the end result. And if those creating these movies, especially the writers and directors who are putting the nuts and bolts in place, if you will, well, if they don't first have passion for it, it's going to be very difficult to create something for those who do. I mean, flashback to Star Wars Celebration a little over a week ago now, where there was a panel for the upcoming show The Mandalorian, which didn't even have a host. It was just Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau talking Star Wars, talking about the show that they'd created and why they were so excited about it. And they brought out some of the actors who also seemed genuinely excited and proud to be a part of all this. And in a giant auditorium full of Star Wars fans, at the biggest celebration for the franchise on Earth, these two guys on stage, Filoni and Favreau, may have been the biggest fans in the room. And look, at the head of Marvel Studios is a guy by the name of Kevin Feige, who is going to be the biggest Marvel fan in pretty much any room he sets foot in, which is a big reason why the franchise has been such a massive success, and one of the reasons why I have no doubts Endgame will be a fantastic movie. So even if there is an issue between some of the actors here after it's been filmed, I really don't think it should matter and detract from the movie. That being said, sure, some of the things Brie Larson has said in the past has bugged me, like when she said something to the effect that playing Captain Marvel was her form of activism. Because as a huge fan of Marvel, that's not what I personally want to hear out of someone playing such an important character, a character that will apparently be a big part of the future of the franchise. Instead, what I'd like to hear is why she's so excited and honored to get the role. I'd like to hear what the character means to her, not what it'll mean for her. Even though, sure, I understand most actors in most cases take the roles they do to further their careers. That's completely understandable, and I'm not saying I fault anyone who does that. And yeah, you know, sometimes when an actor tries to feign their excitement for the franchise or the character they're playing, and you can clearly tell they don't know what they're talking about, or they're giving very generic answers in an exuberant way, it's almost more annoying than them being apathetic about it all. And you'd almost rather they just come out and say, it's just the part I played in a movie, I gave it my all, but I'm not really a fan of any of it, but I still hope you love and enjoy it. That type of answer I can at least respect. And don't get me wrong, Brie Larson can hold whatever beliefs and opinions she wants, and if she wants to try and bring about some good because of a role she's playing, that's very admirable, and not to defend her, but I do feel she wants to right some perceived wrongs. I think her intentions are good and well-meaning. And one of her big issues she's spoken out about has been about better representation among film critics. And she has that now famous line about how she doesn't care about what a 40-year-old white dude thinks about the movie A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for them. And she instead wants to know what the people it was made for think, and to get more diverse opinions on it. Which is all well and good until you really stop and think about it. Because if you're asking for the opinion or review of those the movie was made for, if you're asking what the fans think about it, are you really likely to get an unbiased opinion one way or the other, or what feels like one, which is what I'd assume the average person looking at movie reviews wants. I mean, even if a fan has negative things to say about it and they pan the movie, some might just accuse them of being too critical or being a hater, like what sometimes happens to Star Wars fans who criticize certain films. Or if you praise it too much or just gush over it, people are just going to say you liked it no matter what, which, again, happens in the Star Wars fandom. And all this leads to the question, how relevant is the presumably biased opinion of a fan to someone who isn't a fan? But then if we look even deeper at what she said, Brie Larson is basically implying that other film critics who aren't 40-year-old white dudes will have vastly different opinions about a movie, that there seems to be no set or even unspoken standard that all film critics try to judge movies by, and everyone reviewing them will do it differently based on their race, gender, or whatever else it might be, which doesn't feel very unbiased either, and makes the whole profession look, well, kind of pointless, to be honest. And then what's really curious is when you look at how many 40 or close to 40-year-old white dudes there are in Avengers Endgame, and it makes you wonder how well they really do get along with her after what she said. Now, for all we know, there really is no beef between any of them, and everything is fine behind the scenes, and people are just blowing things out of proportion, but for all we know, there is some animosity there. Either way, that doesn't change the fact that some fans have not taken kindly to Brie Larson's comments, and do have a beef with her. And again, I do get what Brie was trying to say, I think, and agree that anyone who wants to become a film critic should have an equal opportunity to be one. And I think a vast majority of people would absolutely agree with me that you can be whatever you want to be no matter who you are or where you come from. It's just the abrasive way she said it, and the fact that she singled out a very specific group of people as if it was entirely their fault, and I think that angered a lot of people. And I think it's actually a part of a bigger problem that has come about here in the age of social media, that famous people, quote unquote, use their platforms to push their views in a way that makes them sound like they feel like they have absolute moral high ground on issues, and that anyone who disagrees with them is the enemy of the people. And you might now counter by saying, well, aren't I doing the exact same thing right now in this very video, preaching to you all with my relatively tiny platform that I have here on YouTube? Well, in a way, yes, I am. But oftentimes people tell me that they feel I don't take a hard enough stance when I make videos just like these. And the reason for that is because I'm not here to tell you how to think. I'm only here to tell you what I think and then to ask for your opinion on the topic. I'm here to have a discussion with you, not to claim to be an absolute authority on anything, not even Star Wars, even though, yes, I do think I know quite a bit. But there's always someone out there who knows more or has a better understanding of something, and if you're smart enough, you'll try to learn from that person. And you simply cannot have a constructive conversation with someone. You can't learn anything from them when you firmly believe you already know everything or that you're completely and unequivocally in the right. And yes, there are some things in this world that I will take an unwavering stance on and defend with my life if need be, like that all people should be free, for example. However, there is and can be a discussion about what exactly that means, because one person's freedoms should not override another's, which is one of the reasons why we have laws and should have civil debates and discussions, but I'm getting a bit off track here. My point is, one of the most frustrating things I see or experience personally these days is people who come at controversial issues with the absolute belief that they are right. And as much as I admire conviction, I can't stand ignorance, and there is an oh so fine line between those two. We now live in a world where, and it's childish when you really think about it, people can have everything they think and believe in completely shut down because someone has called them a name. I can't even tell you how many times I've engaged in a conversation with someone over something like Star Wars, and I've got called a hater, and that'll just be the end of the discussion we're having, from their point of view. In other words, by calling me a name or labeling me, they feel that then renders my entire argument null and void, and as if I've had nothing relevant to say the entire time. And you might say, well, it's only Star Wars, so who really cares? But it's of course not only Star Wars where this happens. People look to do this everywhere, with a wide variety of topics and in a wide variety of scenarios, many of which are, in the grand scheme of things, far more important than Star Wars, though just barely. And it almost feels like arguments have become like Old West duels, where it's all about who draws and fires first, who labels the other person the worst thing they can think of first, and nullifies all of their arguments. I mean, I'm sure I'll get called a racist and or sexist just for making this video, and then everything I said will be dismissed by that person. Anyway, now getting to the questions I'd like to ask all of you who've made it this far in the video. And again, I'll probably make a follow-up video reading some of these replies, so please do try to keep them relatively concise if possible, though I do understand you may have a lot to say on this topic. Anyway, my questions are, and I ask them in all seriousness and completely unironically. Do you actually care about the views, beliefs, or opinions of celebrities, mainly Hollywood celebrities in this case? Do you find they sway your own beliefs one way or another at all? Or do you maybe find it extremely tiring and annoying? Or do you just do your best to ignore them completely and just enjoy the movies that they're in? Basically, are you tired of Hollywood trying to tell you how to live your life? Or is it not even an issue you notice or care about? And is it just a small part of a much bigger problem in our society about not listening to each other anymore? And I get that these are tricky questions because some Hollywood celebrities do truly great things and donate their time and money to charities or whatever else the case might be. But a lot of them that do that don't then take to Twitter and tell you all about it. They don't make a big deal out of it, which, right or wrong, does make their actions feel more genuine. In closing here, I do feel like one of the biggest problems we face these days, maybe the biggest, is the constant labeling of people that we don't agree with, to the point that these labels lose their original meaning and are reduced to something that only is meant to invalidate arguments or opinions. It doesn't mean anything to call someone racist or sexist anymore, since those are just the defaults people go to anytime they disagree with you. And look, labeling is not how you win an argument, but it feels like so many people think it is. It feels like so many people these days want to talk down to other people instead of to other people. And if those they talk down to can't be made to agree, then they're considered the enemy, instead of just someone with a different view and or opinion that they don't have to agree with, but should try and respect nonetheless, as long as their opinions aren't truly deplorable. Because yes, there are racist and sexist and homophobic people in this world. There are those full of hate for certain groups of people. But when you hand out labels like those as freely as people handing out candy to kids on trick or treat, when you call someone sexist because they don't like a character in a Star Wars movie, well then you're losing sight of those that might truly be enemies of the people, that might actually harm others. And to make a little bit of a joke to lighten the mood here at the end, if Brie Larson doesn't care about what a 40-year-old white dude thinks, which I am a 40-year-old white dude, why should I care what she thinks? And yes, I realize she said that in regards to a movie, but it's basically the real problem here, that when you just dismiss certain people, they're only going to dismiss you in return, and the gaps that separate us are only going to widen. Well, that's all I've got for you this time, and now it's your turn to tell me what you think on this matter. And for those of you who are mainly here for Star Wars and or Marvel content, there's plenty of that coming in the days to come, and I'll hopefully have a spoiler-free review of Endgame up sometime late Thursday night, with plenty of spoiler talk in the days to follow. There's also plenty of Star Wars videos to come as well, and I hope to have a review and discussion of the book Master and Apprentice up very soon. Anyway, again, thank you everybody, and leave your comments below, and let's talk.